The View may actually finally be seeing its final days, and Whoopi Goldberg may be shown the exit door. And why? You see, Stephen Colbert has just given ABC and Disney and Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, reason to do something. In other words, there's a little cover here. Because, once you get rid of one, all of a sudden everybody else can look around and say, yeah, it doesn't really make sense to have a business that's losing money on our hands. Now, in defense of The View, much like Colbert, they have okay enough ratings. So if the ratings are okay enough, is that enough to keep something solvent? No, I don't think so. In the case of Colbert, they were losing something like, $30-40 million a year. Some estimates as high as $100 million. That's pretty embarrassing, don't you think? I mean, how can you have the highest ratings and be losing that much money? It tells me you don't know how to run a business, like at all. And is that Colbert's fault? Is it Paramount's fault? I don't know, but I think that the new and improved Colbert, should he come out and decide to do something very, very different, is not going to have so many people on the staff. And, well, he won't have deep pockets paying him some 25, 15 million. We don't know quite what he was making, but clearly it was too much. Anyway, Donald Trump mentioning that he's really thrilled that this whole thing happened. He's really, really thrilled that Colbert got fired. And now he's thinking that Jimmy Kimmel might be next. Jimmy Kimmel might be next. He's the late guy at ABC. Could quite possibly be next. But, as he said, he has even less talent than Colbert. He does like the guy over on Fox as opposed to the moron on NBC, his words. I can't even tell you what the guy's name is on NBC. We were having this problem yesterday. I think I came up with the Late Late Show guy. I don't know. But the point is, none of these guys are relevant anymore. And part of it is because of what we're doing over here. And you see, they don't actually want their stuff going viral. No. They hoard it. They hold on to it. It's their intellectual property. So on the one hand, where if you wanted to take a clip of the Trish Regan show, I'd say, sure, go for it. You know what? Go for it. Use it. Have fun, right? Most people online, streamers, would do exactly that. But then you have the holdouts like Stephen Colbert and like the guy over the Tonight Show and then the one, Jimmy Kimmel, all of them. They're all the same. They hold on to that content and they won't let you touch it. So I can't actually even run anything for you, which I know you're really sad about, right? I can't even run those clips for you here because he'd hit me with what they call a copyright strike. Well, this is part of how he has just managed to put himself into nothingness, into oblivion. So nobody actually talks about these shows because nobody sees the clips online, and they're still living in a world where actually people tune into live television. Let me tell you, that doesn't happen anymore. Maybe you're tuning in live, watching me right now, streaming live. And yeah, you know what? Careful, I can see all the comments, every single one of them, and I do watch them. And by the way, sometimes even though you think that I don't see them, I do. So it is very good to see all of you. Lots of familiar faces as always. We've got Mike Costa in the house and David Lango and Peace in My Mind, of course. Good to see all of you guys. I'm on a little bit earlier today. I am again broadcasting live from Ireland, here doing a little bit of reporting, and we'll talk about that later in the week. But I can tell you that perhaps as a result of that, I've had all day to work on this show, and it means I'm here live at 12:30 Eastern Time back on the East Coast of New York. The View, as I said, its time has come, and we can get into the financial reasons in just a second. But I think that the other reasons are kind of obvious, and you're going to feel the same kind of emotional reaction, I think, that I do, of disdain, of disgust, when you see these hosts and what they're trying to do on the air on a regular basis every single day. Watch.
Troops is a dangerous escalation. It's not about public safety. There's clearly no plan, and there is clearly no policy.
Yeah, the Defense Department has the U.S. Marines on high alert right now. Now, is it warranted, or does this sort of escalate the situation? I mean, whatever happened to states' rights? I thought that was what you do, because you tell the state, this is what we're thinking of doing. You don't just send people in. You don't just send troops in. But what do I know? I've never run a state. But I don't really, when you come in and everyone is, when you go into the donut shop to look for people and you're dressed in tactical gear, you're creating an issue. You're creating a problem. You want people to come. You've scared them. Even when people are supposed to be there, when they come to talk to the judge, you're arresting them right after. What is going on here?
I think what really matters from sort of a long view here is the fact that he is militarizing and deploying the Guard for the purpose of policing Americans' protest activity, right? Our freedom of speech, our freedom of assembly. And there's a very big, stark demarcation between military troops and law enforcement, public law enforcement, civilian law enforcement.
Right.
And you are an army turned inside to police its citizens can cause chaos, fascism. And so I think that's the way, and civil war. Yeah. I think that's the way we need to look at it, because deploying the National Guard is supposed to be a last resort. But what this president is doing is that he's saying he's going to deploy them anywhere in this country where there is protests. So that is certainly not a last resort use of military troops.
So they said that a couple of weeks ago, and they were effectively, in my estimation, trying to goad us into some kind of civil war type of scenario. I've been pretty clear on this, and I'm going to continue to be super duper clear on this. You know, when it comes to the Constitution, you get the Migration Clause, you get the Supremacy Clause, you get the Commerce Clause, you've got the Foreign Affairs and National Sovereignty Clause. You get a whole lot of clauses in there that make sure that the one thing the federal government can do is control who is in this country. So there's a lot of power that the federal government doesn't have, and I don't believe should have. I'm a very much big states' rights, live free or die, small government kind of gal. But when it comes to who's actually in the country, that is entirely controllable by the federal government. And so they're way out over their skis trying to suggest otherwise. I mean, that one that you just heard from, Sonny something, she's supposed to be a lawyer. What kind of law school did she go to? What kind of scholar is she? It's just amazing to me. But, this is who they are. So they either want to send us straight into some kind of civil war. You get the likes of Brendan Johnson out there in Chicago. I played his sound yesterday. He said he doesn't care about the Constitution. He's not going to cooperate with ICE, period. Nope, DHS, forget it. You want to arrest people that are criminals, that are in the city of Chicago? He's not going to allow it? Come on. Well, on top of that, they're always the victim, right? So, on the one hand, They hate the federal government only because it's Donald Trump. If this were Biden doing something, it would be entirely different. Don't forget, it was Democrats for years and years and years that told us we couldn't be the welfare state for Mexico. Direct quote, by the way, from Dianne Feinstein, the late Dianne Feinstein, senator out of California. This was their mantra. They hated illegal immigration, and for some reason, they suddenly, decided it clicked. They could have 20-some-odd million people come in here, because why not? Gerrymander everything. Suddenly you're going to have more people in one district. And what does that mean? Oh, we get more congressional seats. It's sick, it's twisted, but there was a method to the madness. At least, I kept saying, what is this about? What is this about? And you're not supposed to say what it's really about, but let's not kid each other. They wanted 800,000 non-citizens to vote in the state of New York, and it was not until the appellate court, the Second Court of Appeals, actually said, no way, this is not happening. You're not going to have 800,000 non-citizens voting in the state of New York, that they stopped that one. But don't think that they have fully stopped. They still want this. Don't kid yourself. Meanwhile, The View, ever the victim, right? Here.
He will be president.
So you agree with Crockett then?
He's black.
That you can't have a woman.
You can't have a woman.
It's about a woman.
Well, but the thing is that I don't look at people first by the woman, a black man, a gay person, and this. I look at the best candidate, and then they happen to have all these other things they bring.
You may be a little different from most of the country.
I don't know. I would say that we got to stop telling the American public what they're ready for.
And
we've elected a black man before.
We lost twice when women ran.
Yeah.
But is there no distinguishing factors to each woman and why they might have lost? Is there no nuance?
Hillary Clinton was one of the most qualified candidates in presidential.
She carried a lot of Clinton baggage, but she was polarized.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm fine.
Because to a failed game show host.
Yes.
Okay?
I loved her. I voted for her. But the number one thing I heard from people that didn't like her was there was this mystery around the Clinton baggage they took. I just don't trust her.
They weaponized her husband against Hillary Clinton. And the bottom
they did all those things.
This country is a misogynistic country, and this country is a country that out of all of the first world countries hasn't been able to elect a female president.
So
That's just factual.
Okay. Misogyny, racism. These are the themes that they were promoting on a daily basis. This is not going to continue. Again, when we get to the financials, you'll understand why. Who the heck wants to advertise on this show? You're right next to all of that? I don't think so. By the way, that is not a very American message, shall we say, because America is about one thing and one thing only, and that is a meritocracy. We are a capitalist meritocracy. So if they had had the right candidate, they might have had a shot. I mean, but I'm sorry, when you just go with Bill Clinton's wife and you say she's the most qualified we got, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. When you go with Kamala Harris, who was handpicked by Obama because she checked a bunch of boxes, and you realize that the other guy is too damn old to run and he can barely stream a sentence together, I'm sorry, you're not picking the best women. And then you want to sit there and say, oh, it's because America is sexist, America is racist. Come on. We're over it. By the way, we did elect Barack Obama twice, okay? Not once, twice. I'm not buying that argument from any of them anymore. But this is what they're spouting every single day, to the point where Whoopi Goldberg, who is on her last legs, believe me, they don't want to pay her salary, especially when she is saying misinformed CRAP like this. Somehow she thinks, in all seriousness, ladies and gentlemen, that you're better off living in Iran as a woman than being a black woman in the United States of America. Kid you not. This is shameful.
Yeah, I think it's very different to live in the United States in 2025 than it is to live in Iran.
Not if you're black.
Not for everybody.
Not if you're black.
Guys, don't.
Let me tell you about being in this country. This is the greatest country in the world. But every day, we are worried.
Nobody wants to diminish the very real problems we have in this country. That is no one's intent.
Good.
But I think it's important we remember there are places much darker than this country and people who deserve rights.
Not everybody feels that way.
You know what? I had to actually clean that one up because she was so gross in her commentary. Like, I know. And like one of the things that I've actually said to my team members is the algorithm knows, like they hear it when you say words that you really shouldn't say, right? And they're like, oh, you know, Whoopi says this all the time and she says this, that, and the other. And how does she get away with it? Why is there some kind of double standard? I'm like, it's not really. I'm sure somebody said something, because if you're an advertiser, do you think you want to be on the commercial break coming out of what she just said? And believe me, I didn't even play the worst of it. And the difference is over here, right? The algorithm hears it and a commercial might not actually run that would have otherwise run. But the commercials that run on that show, those advertisers are increasingly skittish to the point where you had Bob Iger sit them all down and say, hey, can we start doing a little entertainment news? Can we do some other things? Do we have to keep doing politics all the time? Because you guys are just turning into who knows what. Did you see this cat fight? I mean, you can't even understand these people.
You got to go to private school.
Because nobody can figure out what's being said here right now.
Yeah, nobody can figure, because you're talking over each other all the time. And you're just yelling about nonsense and nothing. And this is not very representative, frankly, of America or American women. And at the same time, boy, are they bitter. They don't understand why it is that everything over on YouTube is suddenly successful, or Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of this. They're like, who is this guy? Joe Rogan? What? Who is he? What is he? Like, why would anybody believe him over us? Because, you know, we're ABC News. We're the bomb, right? We've got Sonny What's-Her-Face, who's got the legal notes she has to read all the time. And believe me, she has to read a lot of them because she's wrong all the time on the air. Well, Joy Behar can't understand what or who Joe Rogan is. This was great. This moment in television that you can't forget. And Joe had a great comeback. Watch.
And he also thinks that dragons, like dinosaur type of animals, roamed the earth when people did. So this is the type of really, really bad information that's going out there.
Well, in defense, there are...
She's like, in defense. Well, he was at the time trying to actually talk about why is it that throughout history we've seen artistic representations of things like dragons. Like, why is America's, or not just America's, the entire world's imagination been captured by this? It was a discussion he was having, which Joy turned into, oh, he believes in dragons. So the next thing you know, yeah, he came out with T-shirts. He believes in dragons. Listen to his response. It was pretty good. Here's Joe Rogan talking about Joy Behar and The View. And he says it. He says exactly what I'm saying. She's worried about losing her job because she's going to lose it very soon. Watch.
Worried about losing your job, and you're worried about podcasts taking over, and who's the source of news, and we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us and he won, and this is and Joe Rogan believes in dragons.
Yeah. So while Donald Trump thinks that Jimmy Kimmel might be next, I have some good news for him and for you. I actually think it might be The View. Think about how much this costs to produce. I mean, Stephen Colbert is a great example. The show tapes in the afternoon, and they have a huge staff, like a huge staff with lots and lots of camera people, lots of union people, lots of producers, lots of handlers, lots of people just to manage the live studio audience and tell them when to clap and when to laugh and all that good stuff, right? And to book them, because you got to book the audience on top of it all. Security, etc. This is a big operation. It's a big show. It's so big that somehow, even though they had the best ratings, they couldn't manage to survive. Apparently, they were still losing tens of millions of dollars a year. Well, if they were losing tens of millions of dollars a year, how much money do you think The View is losing? Again, similar operation. Now, they don't have one big star. In this case, they've got, what, 5 or 6 on any given day because, they change them out now and then, and maybe some are making more than others. My hunch would be that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar are eating up the bulk of the salaries. Maybe Sonny's making a little bit less, Anna Navarro's making a little bit less. You got the woman that was some kind of GOP person, probably making a little less, and then the blonde that came from ABC, also making a little bit less. So if that helps you, right? Because you're diversifying the salary base, etc. But if you're paying a lot to the likes of Joy and Whoopi, then you start getting into territory that you were probably in with somebody like Stephen Colbert. So your salary costs are very high. On top of that, your production costs are really high. And you get the live studio audience that you get to tell to laugh all the time. You got to book the live studio audience. You get where I'm going. So is it worth it? Even if the ratings are decent, a lot of advertisers still don't want to be involved because look, you look at Stephen Colbert and how political he had gotten. And a lot of advertisers were pulling away from that. They just didn't want to be associated with it. This was his nonstop, delivery, constant criticism of the political atmosphere, specifically vis-a-vis Donald Trump. But, he got what was coming to him, right?
Donald Trump has been sworn in as president of the United States. I know. Listen, we're just as confused as you are. Joe Biden did it. I sat down and just started crying with relief. And Evie said, you never have to talk about him again. And then I cried with joy. After a bizarre and vicious campaign fueled by a desperate need not to go to jail, Donald Trump has won the 2024 election. Next year will be our last season. The network will be ending The Late Show in May.
So like I said, they're all rallying to his side. Jimmy Kimmel's coming out and blasting him. The Atlantic coming out and blasting him. He had a whole bunch of comedians there on his show with him last night. I was disappointed to see Adam Sandler, another Live Free or Die New Hampshire guy there. But, these comedians, these liberal comedians, they stick together. One of the things he did say, and I'll put this up, this is the AP write-through, AP writing a nice little story on him. They said, you know what? Here's the thing. They talked about his sharp comic takedowns of the president. I don't know if they were that sharp, frankly. They were, frankly, kind of just mundane and boring and typical, because it's all you ever hear. I can turn into MSNBC to hear what I'm going to hear on Colbert. He said, over the weekend, it sunk in that they killed off our show, but they made one mistake. They left me alive. Now, he said, I can say what I really think about Donald Trump starting right now. And he had the audience cheering him on. And he said, I don't care for him. Doesn't seem like he has the skill set to be the president. And then, because he just can't help himself, he then had what he called a personal message to Donald Trump, which was basically a giant F you. Like I said, he's not that clever. He's not that good. And we could go listen to that on MSNBC any night of the week. Could we not? Joy Reid found out the hard way, just exactly where that was getting her. And I suspect that you're going to see now the ladies at The View find out the hard way exactly what it's going to mean for them. You know, they're in a tough situation, right? They're in a medium that's dying. They don't like it. They don't understand it. You've got a network that's in trouble. Don't forget, they just had to fire that guy who decided to have a late night Twitter rant on X all about how much he hated the president's top advisor, Stephen Miller. Well, he went bye-bye. But for some reason, the ladies on The View are afforded a little more latitude, just a little though, because that's wearing out. And it's wearing out in part, one, because of the economics of the show, and two, because of, guess what? The FCC and Donald Trump's Brandon Carr, who's coming in for the kill. I mean, he's made it very clear to Bob Iger, he's not going to put up with any of this anymore. He sent a letter before Donald Trump even became president. And then in March, he opened up an investigation into ABC's DEI practices. Right around the same time, they laid off a couple of hundred people at ABC and at Disney. So they've been going through rounds of layoffs and rounds of layoffs. And so at what point does the company say, you know what, we don't need this headache anymore? If you want to believe it's a political headache, it's a political headache, but it's also an economic headache, right? In the case of Colbert, clearly an economic headache because they're losing tens of millions of dollars, even though they don't want to admit that, they don't want to think that. And what do you know? They're trying to get Letitia James involved. In all seriousness, guys, Letitia James involved in suing Paramount CBS for unfair firing. That's the Writers Guild. We'll get to it in a second. But first, keep in mind what's going on with Brendan. So Brendan's like, okay, I'm opening an investigation into DEI at the company because it seems that you were engaging in this. And I'm not just going to have like you change it now. I'm actually going to go back in time because constitutionally, you couldn't have and shouldn't have been doing this, and yet they did it anyway. And we kind of know they did. We know that from, well, the woman who, what was her name? She was the fighter, Gina Carano. We know that through her lawsuit. And then, well, we know it from Bob Iger himself, because wait till you see the sound I'm going to play you. He was literally caught on tape talking about this. But this was the letter that was sent at the end of March. And he said, look, you know, this was a great American iconic company. And somehow you ruined it because for the last, several years, you've been obsessed with this DEI stuff, which technically is against the law because it's a form of discrimination. It was a 3-page letter. And he's like, buddy boy, you know what? I'm going back in time and I'm going to look at this because you're depriving Americans of their rights to free and equal treatment under the law. And obviously at the FCC, we cannot stand for that. So Bob Iger, Disney, they got a problem on their hands, kind of similar in different ways to what CBS was looking at, right? CBS was looking at a situation with 60 Minutes because they edited Kamala Harris's interview to actually make her sound coherent, which is a very tricky thing to do. And I credit that editor. My gosh, he deserves his own little Emmy Award just for being able to edit that thing. But it wasn't the right thing to do because it was misrepresenting Kamala Harris to the American people. But somehow they thought that was all fine. They didn't want to apologize. They didn't want to do anything. You had the next thing you know, the president of the news division resigning. You get the executive producer of 60 Minutes resigning. And now Colbert's out of a gig. So Bob Iger's increasingly finding himself in a similar situation. One, he had to pay $16 million to Donald Trump and his attorneys. He had to fire that guy who really let loose on Twitter late at night. And, well, this little piece of video just surfaced of him back in 2021 talking about how fantastic DEI is and how he's not doing enough. Watch.
I'm very proud of a lot of the work we've done in terms of diversity and inclusion on screen. When we did Coco, for instance, at Pixar, a great example of that, or Tiana, or of course Black Panther is one of the great examples of that. I allowed those things to make me feel a bit complacent in a sense. It's not that I wanted to be that way, but I thought, wow, we did Black Panther. How great are we? And it caused me to not focus as much as I should have on the culture of the company and the environment and in the voices that were telling those stories as opposed to just how they were being portrayed on the screen.
So he's not doing enough because he just put some diverse actors on the screen. And what you really needed to do is make sure you had diversity behind the screen in order to actually really have diversity. Look, I'm not against diversity. Heck, you want real diversity, diversity of opinion. And diversity of opinion is actually a really important thing because it helps you come to a better conclusion. It helps you tell a better story. Part of the problem at Disney is they have no diversity of anything. They all are just woke-minded thinkers that think alike, and then they completely lack creativity. And because they lack creativity, they can't even come up with a decent storyline. Heck, they just keep doing sequel after sequel after sequel after sequel. And you look at the stock price and it's paid the price. I mean, down significantly from where it was 5 years ago. That's dead money. I mean, you consider where inflation is. And the stock price isn't even keeping pace with inflation. I think it's around 121 right now. But this is a company that, granted, is legendary, is massive. And you know what? YouTube is dwarfing them. YouTube's content is so much bigger and better than anything Disney can imagine right now. And Disney is increasingly finding itself up a creek without a paddle. And if you ask me, at some point, push comes to shove, and they're going to say, okay, we got to make more cuts. And who the heck needs The View? Okay? Not additive to the conversation at all. Just like Colbert was not additive in any way, shape, or form to the conversation while simultaneously losing a whole lot of money. I don't have the specifics on the numbers for The View, but knowing what I know about television, knowing how many people actually work on that show, and friends of mine have been hosts on that show, so I know a little bit about behind the scenes. I know what it takes to put on a television show, network style. I've worked at enough of them, okay? It's a lot of money. Plus, you get all those salaries. At least for Colbert, you only had his. But the crazy thing, you guys, is that a lot of these people on the left, they think these shows should stay in business anyway, even if they're losing tons of money. Oh, because it's the brand. It's the brand. We need Whoopi. We need The View. That's the brand of ABC. I'm sorry, if that's your brand, I don't even know what to tell you. CBS, you're better off not having Stephen Colbert as your brand. But the Writers Guild, boy, are they mad. Stephen Colbert himself is mad. He's saying, well, this doesn't make any sense. I mean, we had the best ratings, so why would we be out of the lineup? Here's his quote. How can it purely be a financial decision if the show is number one in the ratings? It's confusing. No, it's not confusing, you moron. You spent more money than you made. It's not that hard. Typical Dem, right? Anyway, watch this insane clip of the Writers Guild lawyer. This guy's representing the writers on the Colbert Show, and they all want their jobs to stay, and they don't care how much money that show loses. Take a peek on CNN, of course.
Network is saying this was financial. This was financial. CBS has a hell of a lot of problems. Okay, we know that. Most media has a hell of a lot of problems. They're saying, they didn't say this, but reportedly the show lost up to $40 million last year. Okay, so that's a lot of money. But as I said, it is the top rated show. I mean, when you hear this is financial, there's nothing else to see here. Do you think that's right?
No, I don't. And I don't for a couple of reasons. I mean, first, this show has not taken any of the steps that other late night shows have taken to cut costs to stay on the air. And also, profit and loss reports don't account for a lot of ways in which a show like The Late Show with Stephen Colbert brings value to CBS and to Paramount. The Late Show is referenced in almost every quarterly Paramount investor call that we could find.
Right.
Wow. And I think that and that's because of the tremendous brand value that this has for the company. When you think about CBS, one of the first people you think about is Stephen Colbert. And so I think that the wrong question is, was there financial problems? I think the question is, why was this canceled? Was it because of a
Well, and as you point out, if you have the top rated show with something that is part of pop culture and, ubiquitous in American culture, then would you try to do everything you could to keep it, as opposed to jettisoning it so quickly? Now, this brings.
Is she speaking for herself there? CNN, please keep us all. She's actually really smart. I actually like Erin, and I worked with her at CNBC. She's one of the better ones, but I'm just laughing about it because it's like, please keep us, keep us, keep us, keep us. Even though our ratings are terrible, even though we're losing so much money, we still want to stay in business because somehow we are the face of the network. Let me tell you, they can get a new face of the network. That's called building a brand. And you can build a brand that hopefully won't cost you as much money. And then you got a show that actually might be a success that isn't as costly. And I'm going to tell you something. They're going to have to learn this the hard way over at MSNBC. But before that happens, you get these writers actually looking to Letitia James. I mean, it's like 6 degrees of separation, guys. It all kind of comes back, meshes together in some weird way. The fact that Letitia is now involved, I'm like, are you kidding me? Letitia James. They're actually turning to Letitia in hopes that Letitia James might actually be able to investigate and figure out whether there was any kind of bribe between CBS and Donald Trump that actually wound up getting rid of one Stephen Colbert. Now, I find that a little bit hard to believe, just a little, because if I'm Trump, Stephen Colbert's not my first pick. That's like the last. I'm going for 60. Okay, like I'm going for the news division. Like, who cares about Stephen Colbert, for goodness sakes? Nobody's even up to watch the show anymore. And because he doesn't allow anybody to use his clips, he hasn't been able to permeate the online world. Therefore, he lacks significance. He's irrelevant. Who the heck cares about Stephen Colbert? It's a financial decision, plus maybe a little bit political. I mean, do you really want this guy sticking it to the president nonstop? I think they came to that decision a little bit with one Joy Reid over on MSNBC. I mean, she was a nightmare. She was blatantly irresponsible, much like, dare I say, Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny Houston, Ana Navarro, and Joy Behar. You see, you don't need it. The bosses don't need it. The advertisers don't need it. And unless you're raking in the big bucks for your network, I don't think the network needs it. Understood? So, Letitia, you can go digging. I don't think you're going to find much. But that's never stopped you before. I'll tell you, we need to do a little more digging on you, honey bunny, because you seem to have done some funny things. Calling your dad your husband back in 1989 in order to get a mortgage. Or in 2023, trying to say that somehow the house in Virginia that you were getting for your niece was actually your permanent residence. Oh, and that was just a mistake, just a clerical mistake. You know, power of attorney, someone screwed up. I mean, you are an attorney. We should hold you to a higher standard. You're a bad attorney. You're a malicious attorney. And you're a political animal. So sure, take this case, see where that gets you. Good luck. Jen Psaki, I got to tell you also, MSNBC and Rachel Maddow, they're going to suffer a similar kind of fate as long as we're on this media thing right now. Remember to subscribe, share, like, by the way. It's really important right now. It helps. Every bit helps. And I'm getting closer and closer to 1 million. And the closer we get to 1 million here on the channel, the harder it gets for some reason. They're really holding out the darn gold plaque. They're going to make it tough. So it may take us a while. So do whatever you can. Comment, like, share, all that good stuff.